Hey guys, it's Vandy as a Biocraft Vanguard deck profiles. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't like, comment, subscribe, and sorry. This time we're covering DZ Set 6 for Dragon Empire Vermillion. So one of the main selling points for DZ Set 6, actually there are a lot of main selling points of DZ Set 6. There was Chronos Command, there was Transos, there was Roa, there was Graham Grace, there was Favrenil, there was Vermillion and Glory, and there was Soul Rairon and Gandiva. So yeah, honestly there was a lot of selling points for this set. But anyways, good stuff we got, because honestly Vermillion got a interesting upgrade. I am going to say it is my least favorite of all of the upgrades that came out of this set just because of how it feels to me, but we'll go over that when we get there. First update, we have our energy generator. It's our ride deck crest. You run ride deck crest in your ride deck. Auto ride deck, when you would ride, puts card to your crest, only for 1 second, energy charge 3, and then continues to to energy. I'll be giving ride phase, energy charge 3, and then act once per turn, energy boss 7, draw a card. Pretty solid. Every single turn, you're getting a free energy 3, and then if you want second, you get an extra 3 on top of that. And there are very few cards in this deck that actually do use up energy. The main ones, of course, being this one right here, Bellicosity, who's an amazing, useful card, and also Spark Spike Dragon. But if you're not using any of those two on board, you can feel free to use up 7 of your energy to get a draw and hopefully increase your hand. So it's a nice card to have, and you have to have it. So this is our 1 of energy crest. And we have our starter in Spark Kid Dragoon. Grades with boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto run point for second, draw a card, standard starter, and that's about it. You can afford to run any starter you want. None of the rider line requires Spark Kid Dragoon, but might as well go for the full network common line, because why not? So yeah, Spark Kid Dragoon is the starter here. Moving on to our triggers, we have our trigger in Dragon Deity King of Resurgence, Drag Veda. Grades with boost, 50k shield, 5k power, over trigger in your deck of Vid. As a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one of use. It gets plus minutes for a turn. If you during draft check, activate its additional effect, which you get to choose one Vanguard to stand it. All around pretty solid. You know, regardless if you damage to the draft check this, someone's getting 1,000,000 in a draw, and if you end up draft checking this, you get to stand your Vanguard, which is incredible in a deck that has a Vanguard that can do a bop damage effect, and B, a deck where the Vanguard has extra critical inherently. All around, this card's really great to have because it allows for Vermillion to technically pressure 4 to 5 damage in a turn on its own, which is incredible, especially while also killing your opponent's board at the same time. So Drake Veda is essentially, while yes, it's just a Vanguard restand, is also a board nuke at the same time. So one of Drake Veda, you could run Valhalla for more consistent multi-tacking, or 4 for recycling, or the Dark Overtrigger for healing and calling, or even the Yellow Overtrigger for guard killing, but I prefer Drag Veda for that inherent pressure that it automatically brings once you're at grade 3. Then we have our normal triggers. We own 3 copies of Flare Veil Dragon. Grades with boost, 5k shield, 4k base, continues guard circle, opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 grade at 5,000 shield. You know, so draw trigger helps increase the hand. This deck really wants to draw into OG Vermillion as fast as physically possible, and then any card that can send it to soul as fast as physically possible. So you're definitely going to want to run the draw triggers to help increase the hand, so 3 of. And you definitely want to focus on the aggressive of the deck by running multiple crits. You can run Burning Flow Dragon and Conduct Spark Dragon. Conduct Spark can really be whatever you want, just to make it Conduct Spark, because I mean it's a Thunder Dragon. This deck is literally made around thunder, so might as well run this. So grades of boost, Vindication, show 5k power. Again, can be any crit you want. And then Burning Flow Dragon, you don't have to run this, but if your playstyle is the type where you try to use every card skill physically possible, you're gonna want to run this, because there are about 2 different soul bosses here who definitely can screw you over if you spam every skill physically possible. So Burning Flow is just out at the end, by the boost is shoved to soul, choose whatever you get 2k for the turn. That 2k, unless you have like 2 to 3 of them in the back row, does not make the difference most of the time, but being able to send stuff to soul and allow you to access more of your retiring abilities is great. So total of 8 crit with the 4 of being of that. And finally, we have 4 heals in White Light Dragon Parasolas. Crits with boost, 15k shield, 5k power, standard heal, and that's about it. You can really run any heal you want. You can choose to make this a counter heal if you so wish to. I choose to make it the normal vanilla heals though, because I much prefer their consistent 15k shield over the fluctuating 10 to 25k shield. But again, you do you, but for me, it's Parasol. So we run a total of 3 draws, 8 crit, 4 heals. Moving on to our grade 1s, we run 2 copies of Rising Phoenix. I don't know why, but I feel like there's supposed to be music going in the background. And maybe it's just because I was just listening to music and now it's just like total silence outside of me. But I feel like there's supposed to be music playing in the background for this. Anyways, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto drop zone. When any player's card is bound by your card effect during your turn, if your Vanguard's cleansed only now Kami Soul, boss 1 calls card to rearguard circle, and after rearguard retire this unit, choose one of these, get 5,000 power for the turn. Okay, Rising Phoenix is a nice grade 1 to have because you can call it out from drop zone during the battle phase when your order effect that you got from Eternal Thunderbolt binds your opponent's units, so you get some extra attacks going, or you just get an extra booster out on board. And at the same time, it can retire itself on the following turn or beforehand to set itself up into drop zone for multi-attack to give someone 5k. Again, the downside is it does eat into the soul, and while at least compared to our other soul blaster over here, Ahem, Death Scythe, it doesn't eat into the soul as much. It still could eat into the soul and possibly make you soul blast over Vermillion, or make you get closer to soul blasting over Vermillion when you never want to soul blast that card. So you don't want to see this card too often, especially because between the two, I much prefer Dragonic Death Scythe usage over Rising Phoenix. But hey, if you need a multi-attack to close out the game, game, or just want to give someone a free 5k and buff the Vanguard even more, it's a welcome 2 in the deck. Following that, we have 4 copies of Spark Spike Dragon, Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Continuous if your Vanguard is only a Narukami, this card also becomes a Narukami unit. So continuous rear guard, if your Vanguard is an only Narukami, all your other rear cards say Calm as I get a free 5k. That is the easiest 5k stack I have ever seen in my entire life. Combined with, you know, the blood skill over here, that's a total plus 10k to your front row, not even trying to make it a 10k. Plus Persona, that's 20k to your front row just by simply being on a Narukami blood. And then if your Vanguard's attack hit 2 or more times this turn, those units get 10k instead of 5k, so that's a total of plus 25 without triggers as long as you're on the blood. Cool. All around pretty solid just for power stacking, and it's free. That ability does technically stack, so if you put a Spark Spike Dragon in front of another Spark Spike Dragon, because it doesn't specify that the unit in front of it has to get the 5k, it's just units in the same column, that means they would just power each other up to where they could possibly be 18k boosters and swingers, so pretty solid for that. And then Auto Rear Guard also works really well with Rising Phoenix, because all multi-attack decks kind of struggle with the idea where you have to sometimes pick which attack you're going to boost and which attack you're not going to boost. Well, with Rising Phoenix, even if you call to the front row, as long as it's in front of Rising or Spark Spike Dragon, and it's gonna get the 5k anyway. So pretty solid for that. And then Auto Rear Guard, I think about that it boosted if your Vanguard's attack hit 2 or more times this turn. Doesn't matter what it specifically hits, so it can hit Vanguard, it can hit Rear Guards, it can hit both. Energy Blast 3 to draw a card. Okay, coal. It's a cheaper version of the Energy Generator. It's a cheaper version of the Energy Generator. It allows you to add hand cards without costing too many energy, so you can use the rest of your energy on something like Bellicossi Dragon. All around, Spark Spike is a very good grade 1 to have, and the thing I love about it and Bellicossi is that both of them can draw cards for only a simple Energy Blast 3, making them a little bit better than the Energy Generator, so it's a solid 4 for me. Really good with numbers, counts as an Narukami unit, so it gets buffed up from the Narukami specific effects, and it also allows you to possibly get a draw if your Vanguard hit twice that turn, which is really easy to do, so 4 Spark Spike. Then we have Plasma Catapult Dragon, grade 1, or not Plasma Catapult, why do I always call this card Plasma Catapult Dragon? Grade 1 boost is 0/6k base, Sparkle Rejector Dragon, continues Sentinel, up to 4 Sentinels in deck on put on guard circle, choose on units, it cannot be hit on the battle if your hands 2 more cards in it, choose a card from your hand, discard a standard PG, nothing to specify it, basically that means if this is only one of the cards in your hand, place it on guard circle, you don't have to discard it, great, because that means you'd be as aggressive as you want in the early game, spam the ever-living hell out of these 2, and also these guys, and then when your opponent eventually counterattacks you, when you have low hand cards, Sparkle Rejector, middle finger them, go to your grade 3 turn, ride into this thing, use the order that you put into drop zone purposefully via this thing's effect, and then proceed to buff up your front row and then kill your opponent because you aggroed them way down in the early game. Spark Rejector Dragon is a very good PG to have. It can signify the counterattack in a single move if your opponent overextends at all, especially if you purposely leave yourself open, like I said, and rush your opponent as fast as physically possible. Nice PG to have. You can run Twin Buckler Dragon or Manju because they both have that same skill. I should pick a Spark Rejector though because it came out close to the time of Vermillion's release, so 4 for me. Then we have our last grade 1 in the deck, 3 in the main deck, 1 in the ride deck of Red River Dragoon, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, honor and rode upon by a unit with only Narukami for its clan. Search after 1 Eternal Thunderbolt, reveal it, put it to hand, and shuffle your deck, so it's a way to get your order back to hand, which is great. And because that order can be played from drop zone, that essentially gives you grade 2 turn discard fodder for riding grade 3, which is nice. And then Auto Rear Guard, when this unit boosts, if you have a grade 3 guard of Vanguard with only Narukami for the clan, CB1, choose an opponent's back or rear guard, bind it, and if you do not bind a card, you may soul charge 2. All around pretty solid because the CB1 to get rid of an opponent's rear guard, and you can end up soul charging 2, which is great because essentially makes Death Sight free. But if you don't want to soul charge because you're afraid you're going to soul charge a trigger, or you are about to deck out and the soul charge would screw you over, then you don't have to soul charge if you don't want to. You can just CB to CV for whatever reason. All around though, Red River Dragoon is an amazing grade 1. Bind stuff on rear guard and can also possibly get you 2 free soul charge and guaranteedly get you your grade 2 ride turn for free. Because typically how I just play this deck now is anytime I get the order into hand, I just keep ditching it because 9 times out of 10, I truly believe, I haven't gone to the situation yet where I've had to use all 4, which proves my point. The game is going to end before you play all 4 Eternal Thunderbolts, so you can just afford to use them as discard fodder and then just play them from drop zone every time. So you don't need like the double amount because they can be played from drop. So they're the main deck of Red River, 1 of them in the ride deck, get you free ride deck fodder, get you a rear guard bind. If it doesn't do that, get you 2 free soul charge. Then we move on to our grade 2s, 2 copies of Bellicossi Dragon. So you don't want him in here too much because he is a Kagero encounter card, not a Narukami, which Doesn't sound like it makes a difference, but considering some of our support cards do require Narukami, our very important searcher over here, and pretty much everyone else here that mentions the word Narukami, you're going to want to run this as least as possible, but you're still going to run around it because the skill is really good. Continuously, if your Vanguard only has one clan, doesn't specify what clan it can be, so it can be Narukami, even if this is a Kagro. If your G-Zone has no cards in it, this card gets all the following. Auto placed on Rearguard Circle, Energy Blast 3, eat a hand card to soul to draw 2 cards. Oh, very nice. It puts a hand card to soul when you really need it and draws you 2 cards. It's like it almost combos perfectly well with another grade 2 that was revealed the exact same time as it. And then auto Rearguard when your Vanguard attacks these 5,000 power for the turn. Okay, clearly this is meant for Overlord because, you know, on place Rearguard, Energy Blast 3, put OG Overlord to soul, draw 2 cards while you're on the Dragonic Overlord at the end, and then every time your Vanguard attacks is going to get an extra 5k, so it's a 20k, while in Vermillion you're only attacking once outside of the over trigger, so it's most likely going to be a 15k, but again, it gets you a soul card, so, you know, F you, Death Scythe, but also it gets you 2 free draws to replace it, and it's your quickest and cheapest way to get Vermillion into soul outside of this. So all-around bellicosity is nice to have. Again, you don't want to run too much of it because a lot of your units do kind of require Narukami or want them to be Narukami, so you don't want this to be overran, but you definitely do want the extra 2 draws it can get in the free way to get Vermillion to soul, so it's a nice 2 of. Then we have 4 copies of Dragonic Death Scythe, grade 2 5k shield, 10k base, contains rearguard. During turn, if your opponent has no form of rearguards, it gets 5,000 power, so it's a 15k swing once your opponent loses their front row. Oh, if only there was an easy way to murder the front row without trying, or force your opponent to lose cards in the process. And then auto rearguard when this unit attacks into a Vanguard. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 rearguard to Narukami, Soul Blast 1, choose 2 of your opponent's Soul Blast 2, choose 1 of your opponent's rearguards. I got the numbers confused, and bind it, and then if you do not bind a card, you draw a card. Aren't pretty solid, you know, it's a simple Soul Blast 2, which is really hefty because, again, it does kind of bleed into making you Soul Blast over Vermillion, especially because you cost a Soul Blast for some reason. I feel like they understood what they were doing with that one, but again, this is why you run stuff like Bellicosity and Red River over here, so you could try to mitigate the Soul problem, and at least you can bind opponent's rearguard, possibly get 5k off it, and if you don't bind something, well, you get a draw. On the plus side, it can bind anything from anywhere on the board, so it can be front row, it can be back row, and again, if you don't bind something, you do get a draw out of it, so there is benefit to this card. All-around Dragonic Death Scythe, really good for just like early game, call it down, swing for a 10k, because if they don't kill it, I mean, they don't kill it, and it can definitely be the thing that kills them, because 5k from its own skill once they have no rear guards in the front row. Let's just straight up assume the Vanguard attack hits twice, so that's 10k from that thing skill, so it's a 25k, plus Vermillions, assuming we get the free plus 5, that's a 30k base right there without Persona Rides or triggers, or even boosting, it's just 30k on its own. Iron Dragon Death Scythe, very good grade 2 to have 4 of. And we have 4 copies of probably one of the best consistency makers I've ever seen, Demonic Dragon Nymph Cashin. Grade 2, intercept 5k shield, 10k base, continues if you have a Vanguard with only Narukami for the clan. This unit also becomes a Narukami. Auto placed on rearguard circle from the hand. If your Vanguard is only Narukami for the clan, doesn't matter what grade it is, so if it's a grade 2, you can still proc this. Check the top 7, choose up to 1 card for Vermillion as card name only, and only Narukami for its clan, or up to 1 Eternal Thunderbolt from them. So basically add any of your grade 3s to your hand, and then once you do, you shuffle it, and if you did reveal a card, choose a card from your hand, sell it to soul, or discard it. So upside, this gets you a Thunderbolt to drop zone. Upside, it gets you a Vermillion to soul. Downside, it only gives you 3 targets to choose from, and if you don't reveal any of them, you automatically don't shove a card to soul. Why does that matter? Because there was a game I played, and it's on camera, and I know this because that game was held to record, where I played in Cash-In, and I already had a Vermillion in the hand, and all I needed to do was find another Vermillion or Thunderbolt so I could yeet the Vermillion that's currently in my hand to soul, and I didn't hit one, and that game I lost because I did not get a Vermillion to soul, because I didn't hit another Kenshin, and I did not hit a Bellicosity. So 4 of her for that. Just the only downside is that you only get 3 targets, and if you whiff them, well, sucks to be you, especially if one of them's in the hand. And then auto rearguard when this unit attacks into anything. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 rearguard of Vermillion and only Narukami for the clan, CB1, this unit gets 10,000 power for the battle. At the end of the battle, bind her. All around, cool. She's a 20k swing. She can bind herself, so if you want to combo that with a, I don't know, I was just like combo. If you want to combo that with a Dungaree deck in premium, I am using air quotes right now to describe this plan. You can. Do I recommend this? No, but can you? Yes. But either way, though, again, being able to check the top 7 for Vermillion or Eternal Thunderbolt is great because it can get you a soul card as well, or worst case scenario, get you a Thunderbolt into drop zone, so you're just deck thinning. And then not to mention the fact it's a 20k swing literally into anything regardless of what grade your opponent's Vanguard is at, meaning if you have the potential to go for lethal while your opponent's at grade 2, you can thanks to her. So 4 of Cashin. And then we have our last grade 2 in the deck. One of them in the right deck, none in the main deck, and mainly the real reason we want to have everything be in our Kami in this deck. Thunderstorm Dragoon, grade 2 and step 5 Kishio, 10k base, all rode upon by a grade 3 card, only Narukami for the clan. Check the top 7, choose up to 1 Eternal Thunderbolt or 1 Narukami card, reveal it, put it to hand, shuffle your deck. So this thing searches everything that is not a trigger, not a PG, and not Bellicosity. Every other unit in this deck is searchable, so that's pretty solid. And then Aldu when placed on rearguard circle, if your Vanguard cleanse only Narukami, this will never happen because there's no way to call this card out from Soul, and there's no way to call from Drop Zone, but if you did have extra copies of it or found a way to call it, Soul Charge 1, and this uses 5,000 power for the turn. Okay, it's a way to get free Soul. It's a 15k base, and again, on Rotapon, it literally gets pretty much any normal unit from your deck outside of Bellicosity and a PG. All around, Thunderstorm Dragoon is a solid grade 2 to have. You don't want to run in the main deck because, again, there are better, more consistent ways to get Soul Charging in here, so it's just a one of in the right deck for me. Moving on to our grade 3s, we're on 4 copies of our Eternal Thunderbolt. Grade 3, normal order, amazing card that can only be played from drop, or it can be played from drop zone, not only played from drop zone. So technically speaking, you get a total of 8 uses of this. One when you play from the hand, and then another when you play from drop, so times that by 4, that's a total of 8. And play this card for your Vanguards only Narukami, and it has Vermillion in the card name. So literally no CB, no Soul Blast, no energy, no cost this whatsoever. Choose one of the Vanguards, and it gets continuous Vanguard. When your opponent's rearguard that was hit by this unit's attack specifically would be retired from rearguard, bind instead of retiring it. Okay, there's our free Rising Phoenix trigger over here. And then continues Vanguard. If your opponent has no rear guards at all, your entire front or rear get a plus 5,000 power and until end of that turn. If this card is played from drop, bind it. So it increases your bind zone. So again, you can combo that with certain bind zone units, Dungaree, but also you can give your entire front row of 5k once you murder your opponent's rear guard, which isn't too hard to do considering both Vermillions can hit 3 units at once, one being the Vanguard, obviously. And then as for the other ability, well, it binds the opponent's unit. So if they had a way to call it back from drop zone, they get the fresh middle finger because it's not coming back. Armored Eternal Thunderbolt is an amazing order because, again, it has literally no cost to it. It can be played from drop zones. This card's automatically discard fodder that you get straight up off of the grade 1, which is amazing. But also in the sense of just you technically have a total of 8 uses of this, so God forbid the game did go that long. But if you knew the game was going to go on that long for some reason, you can just keep stockpiling your orders and keep pressuring down your opponent. Well, every turn you're constantly getting 5k and constantly making their rear guards beyond return. So 4 Eternal Thunderbolt, just a really good order to have for the deck. Then we have 4 copies of essentially a dead card, quote unquote, because logic be damned, there is no point in time where you will ever ride this unless like in one very specific niche situation, and that is Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion. Grade 3, 200% right, 13k base, all 4 copies of the main deck, because there's no way to superior ride in this deck. Act Vanguard once per turn, CB1, choose 2 of your units with only Narukami for their clans. It can't count itself. You get 5,000 power for the turn, and then until end of the turn, when this unit would attack, choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards, and this unit battles your opponent's Vanguard and all the units in the chosen rear guard circles. So that ability stays with it for the turn, so if you pull the over on its first attack, it does kill the, assuming your opponent took them, it does kill the 2 opponent rear guards that originally attacked, plus the Vanguard, and then on a second attack, you can still target 2 more rear guards along with the Vanguard, which is great for pressure. And it's like that he gives everyone else 5k too, and he only costs a CB, which if you've been paying attention, everyone except for Red River Dragoon does not cost CB, so essentially this thing is going to always be free. And then Auto Vanguard once per turn, at the end of battle, this unit attacked into anything. If you played a normal order this turn and your opponent's damage on is 4 or less cards, regardless if it's attack hit or not, ditch any hand card, a second copy of that, choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, deal it damage. Okay, upsides to this. This does not require any CB, nor SB, no energy blast, no nothing. As long as the opponent has 4 or less damage and you played this literally from anywhere, and more likely than not you're going to play it from drop zone, you can ditch a card, bop an opponent's damage. Cool. Adds damage card to your opponent, adds a little bit of pressure because you know you already have your drive checks possibly stacked onto it. He gives 5k to other people, and he can attack all your opponent's rear guards at once. Now, there are games where you might need that extra 5k because Mofo over here doesn't give 5k. I mean, well, he does specifically to the front or rear guards, but I mean, maybe there's a game where you're going to need to give the Vanguard 5k. There's very specific situations where that might be useful. Fair enough. That's when you go into Vermillion. Otherwise, he is simply sent to soul fodder for these 2, and you only ride into this. Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, the Blood. I'm not going to play the anime clip, and I'm not going to put that with more energy. A, because it is nighttime, and I don't want to wake people up, and B, I don't want to get copyrighted. Swap the order of those to match the other points. Either way, grade 3, 10% 13k base. This card does have an amazing art, though, like just the thunder sparking in the background, and I really love his sword design. It just looks so cool here. And like his little I don't know what that is. I kind of want to call it a dingling, but I shouldn't. But yeah, the little dingling over here. Anyways, continues Vanguard. During your turn, if your soul has Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion in it, add 5,000 power to itself, so it's an 18k base. And your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 grade, it gets a crit, and all your front rear guards get 5,000 power. Yeah, remember what I said before, where this 5k is only going to come in useful in a very specific situation? Yeah, that situation is where you're giving 5k to the same column, aka let's say a Spark Spike column and a Red River Dragoon column. Otherwise, it will never be better than this, because this gives 5k to the entire front row, and it gives itself a crit as well, which is great. And then act Vanguard, once per turn, Soul Boss 1 till end of turn. When this unit would attack, choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards. It does literally the exact same skill as Vermillion over here. It just costs a Soul Blast instead of a CB, which again does hurt it because it conflicts with Death Sight's ability to bind stuff. But I mean, hey, you know what? We're still getting the crit pressure and we're still overwhelming the opponent. And then auto Vanguard, exactly verbatim for the previous skill. Once per turn, at the end of battle, this unit attacked into anything, doesn't matter if it was Vanguard or rear guard, doesn't matter if the attack hit or not. If you played in a normal order this turn and your opponent's damage on his 4 less cards, ditch a hand card, choose opponent's Vanguard, deal a bop damage. Okay, there's a lot to unpack with that. These two skills are essentially straight up verbatim matches with this one, and the only difference is this skill became like the power up skill became its own subsection, and this skill, well, that's its own entity. This originally was a CB, which again made it a lot better to run with the rest of the deck because no one else costs CB outside of Red River. But this one over here costs Soul, which is a cheaper cost to make for more generic cards to be in the deck and doesn't specifically require Narukami units. On the downside, its Soul problem plays into the other Narukami units having to cost amount of Soul Blast to use their skills, so 50-50 on that. But he does give himself a crit once the opponent hits grade 3, so if you're going second, you automatically have that inherent crit pressure, assuming you sent Vermillion to Soul via something like either Cash-In or Bellicosity, both who are alive on turn 2, mind you, and then still have that 3 rear guard attack, or sorry, 3 unit attack skill in one go, and still gives 5k to front row. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be on the blood, because he just does everything that the OG does, but better, and only in those specific situations where you're going to give the 5k to the same column are you going to go into OG Vermillion. But because you're going to lose on a Persona Ride, you're honestly better just going into regular blood anyways, because on Persona Ride turns out 15k to the front row, not counting Death Sight, not counting Spark Spike, not counting any other buffs you could possibly have. All around Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, the blood, very good grade 3 for overall pressure, and it is a nice upgrade over OG Vermillion, though it just feels like the most generic because they just straight up took 2 of its skills, turned one of them into the exact same thing verbatim, changed the cost of the other one, and then split that same one in half just to make it have a 3rd skill. So there's that. But either way, though, it's a solid upgrade, and I'm willing to give it the 3 of them main deck, 1 of them in the ride deck. And without further ado, that's it for this one. Hope all of you enjoyed. Honestly, this deck is really fun to play. You know, you just basically ram rush your opponent down. You force them to eventually just try to rush you back. You PG them. And then you just overwhelm them with the blood because extra crit pressure is fun. Having 5k to front row, even though it doesn't sound like a lot, is actually a lot. Not to mention having a free bop damage, having a literal infinitely playing order throughout the game is great. And not to mention the fact just constantly killing 3 units in one attack or forcing your opponent to basically let them take 3 rear guards in one attack is great as well. So I'm going to this one here. I hope all of you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and join us on Twitch. I'll see you all in the next one. Don't send up your Vanguards.